A black goddess come to Earth.
Pam Grier is Friday Foster, and she's running with a heavy crowd. Yaphet Kotto, Eartha Kitt, Godfrey Cambridge, Jim Backus, Thalmus Rasulala, Ted Lange, and Scatman Crothers.
Lord have mercy!
Her name is Friday, but you can dig her any day of the week.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're gonna catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, Doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first!
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the American International Podcast. I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And on this episode, we're looking at Freaky Friday starring Jodie Foster.
No, we're not.
No, wait, did I watch the wrong movie?
Yeah, I think maybe you did.
No, we're talking about American International's Friday Foster from 1975.
They really scared me there, Jeff. Friday Foster was directed by Arthur Marks from a screenplay by Orville Hampton. The story is by Arthur Marks, and it's based on the 1970 to 1974 comic strip Friday Foster by Jim Lawrence, Jorge Longarón, and Dick Giordano. The movie was produced by Arthur Marks as well.
Friday Foster stars Pam Grier as the titular Friday Foster, Yaphet Kotto as Colt Hawkins, Godfrey Cambridge as Ford Malotte, Thalmus Rasulala as Blake Tarr, Eartha Kitt as Madame Rena, Jim Backus as Enos Griffith, Scatman Crothers as Reverend Noble Franklin, Ted Lange as Fancy Dexter.
Also stars Tierre Turner as Cleve, Paul Benjamin as Senator David Lee Hart, Jason Bernard as Charles Foley, Edmund Cambridge as Lieutenant Jake Wayne, Julius Harris as Monk Riley, Rosalind Miles as Cloris Boston, Carl Weathers as Yarborough, John Anthony Bailey as Cop Number 1, and Mel Carter as the Gate Guard.
The movie starts, as so many do, with some opening credits. In this particular set of credits, we find ourselves driving around Washington, D.C., interrupted by occasional images of Friday Foster within a camera lens.
It's a special effect. Not that special. This opening looks to me like an opening to a TV show. It could be a Quinn Martin production.
And the main title from Friday Foster is a very catchy tune.
They always are in these kinds of movies. They're always an earworm when we watch one of their blaxploitation movies. That's enough of Washington, D.C. We're going to cut to Los Angeles. Monk Riley, the editor of the Glance fashion magazine, walks into his office and picks up the phone. He's calling Sean, and he's telling whoever's taking the message, even though it's New Year's Eve, Sean better make himself available. It's a matter of life or death. His. And then without waiting, he makes another call.
This call is to Friday Foster's home. The phone rings, and Friday asks her brother, Cleve, to answer the phone. He does and tells Friday that it's her boss on the phone. She asks if it's Sean, and Cleve says, no, it's not Sean.
Nope, it's Mr. Riley. Friday's confused, but she takes the call on the other line. Cleve is listening in. He never hung up. She thinks that Mr. Riley is looking for Sean, but no, he wants her. And what he wants is for her to get her little camera and shoot her little pictures and get the hell out. Don't get involved. He hasn't told her what the assignment is yet. That's all she knows.
But he did mention that he hasn't been able to get in touch with anyone else, and so that's why he's calling her. So she wasn't first on the list.
She doesn't seem offended by this, though. This is what we don't hear. But she repeats it. Blake Tarr, the billionaire, the Black Howard Hughes, the richest black man in America. And then she asks, why would he be coming here? Riley just orders her to take her cute little behind there and shoot pictures and don't get involved. And that's all we know.
So now we cut to a party, and the character of Cloris Boston is walking around nervously, and then she goes to make a phone call. So now we're back at Friday's apartment. She's getting ready to go out on her assignment when the phone rings. Cleve is sitting in a closet counting money, and Friday asks him what he's got hidden in there, a Cadillac, and Cleve ignores this and says he'll go answer the phone. He tells Friday it's Cloris, and she takes the call.
Friday tells Cleve to tell Cloris that she can't take the call right now, but Cleve says that Cloris sounds kind of funny, so Friday does take it. And I think Cleve's right. She does sound a little funny. She wants Friday to listen, but Friday is more of a talker than a listener. Friday says that she can't go out right now. She's sorry she's going to miss that party, but she'll get back with her later. Cloris says, please, I need you. There's no one else I can tell. But Friday says, sorry, I've got to go. I'll get back with you later.
So now we find ourselves outside at an airport. A man wearing a security uniform gets out of a car and meets two other men. The first man is Yarbrough, portrayed by Carl Weathers. He has a paper sack and takes on a couple of guns and hands one to each of the men.
One of the men is dressed like a maintenance worker, and the other one has a security uniform on. Now we're back with Friday. Her cab drops her off at the airport terminal. She starts jogging to her destination.
We cut back to Yarbrough and the two men. Yarbrough provides bullets to the two men as well. They exchange nods of understanding, and the two men head off.
And now we're back with Friday. She's running down some stairs. The three fake airport workers enter a private plane hangar and hide behind some crates. Friday, who has unfettered access to every part of the terminal, this is way before 9/11, guys, is now outside, approaching a security gate. She's carrying a bottle of wine in a paper sack.
She goes up to the security guard and says, Leroy, but this isn't Leroy. Friday explains that she's looking for her man. It's New Year's Eve and he's working tonight, and she's just going to go in and find him, but the guard stops her. Friday says that she has this bottle of wine, so she offers it to the guard, sweetening the deal by saying that maybe later on the three of them can party together. 4 if you count the bottle. I guess this works because Friday starts to go on through, but the guard stops her one more time just to let her know that he knows that there is no Leroy on the staff. She calls him a turkey under her breath and continues on.
He takes a big swig, though, so he feels like he won this exchange. Now Friday enters the hangar as a small private plane arrives just outside. The door opens, and Blake Tarr and his entourage are exiting the plane. The assassins open fire as soon as he enters the hangar. Tarr is hit in the shoulder, but the firing does continue.
There is security and police already on the scene, probably a security for the richest black man in the nation coming into town. So there is a shootout.
Friday's shocked, but she starts taking pictures. She's at least that much on the ball.
Yarbrough sees that things aren't going well. He ducks out early. The man who had been wearing the maintenance uniform is shot while trying to climb over a fence. And the man in the security uniform is shot in the back as he's running away. He turns around to get off one more shot before he flees. Friday has been taking pictures this whole time.
And now Friday feels like it's time to make her escape. Sirens are blaring, of course. Backup is on the way. Outside, she starts running and bumps into Yarbrough, who's coming around the other side of a car. They collide. He raises his gun, but just as he's about to shoot her, that first security guard we saw, the one who took the wine, shouts, "Hey, you!" He gets shot by Yarbrough. And then when Yarbrough turns to look for Friday again, she's gone. She's hiding behind a car, so he takes off running.
Yep, Yarbrough doesn't have time to look for her right now. He's got to get out of there.
Friday stands up. She's visibly shaken by what she's seen as cops run around her trying to catch the culprit.
The other man in a security uniform, the one who got shot in the back, gets into a car and the police give chase. This is a pretty entertaining chase scene, especially considering what little happens.
Well, something big happens, but really for no reason.
Highlights include a parked car bursting into flames as Chet rushes by it in his car.
Yeah, from under the hood. He somehow set off a detonation inside the engine block.
And a pursuing police car flips over after trying to drive up an embankment.
And this allows that shooter to escape. He makes it to Cloris's place, but by now the party's over.
Cloris is looking at the mess she'll have to clean up when she's distracted by the opening of the front door.
The man, we'll soon find out his name is Chet, takes a couple of steps in. Cloris grabs him. She says, "Thank God you're alive. You're not doing that anymore. Not for Black Widow, not for Black nothing." And she's right.
This isn't the reception Chet was hoping for, so instead of putting up with it, he falls face down to the floor, dead from being shot at the airport.
Well, I think you're reading a lot into the situation there. Cloris is distraught.
So now we cut to Friday in her darkroom. She's developing her photos. And then she's making a phone call at the same time to tell Cloris that she's free now and she can come to the party. But Cloris tells her that the party's over and not to bother.
She's disinvited.
Friday says she'd still like to stop by, but Cloris is insistent and says she shouldn't come there.
Friday says, "Okay, well, I'll see you at the fashion show tomorrow." And then she takes some prints into Riley, who's looking for a picture of Tarr wounded or one of the shooters.
Yeah, so now we're at the office for Glance, the picture magazine. And Friday and Riley are going over the pictures. He says that he just needs one good shot so that there's no doubt that it's Blake Tarr and not someone else. And Friday points one out to him. And just then, Friday's boss, Sean North, comes in.
Friday's standing behind Riley and gloating pretty hard here. Sean asks if he missed anything important, and Riley yells, "Was seeing an assassination attempt important?" And Sean looks a little chagrined at this. Monk was forced to send Friday in his place, of all people.
And that she almost got herself killed.
Oh yeah, that too.
Friday starts to interject when she realizes she recognizes one of the men in the photos, pointing to Chet. She feels she met him, but she doesn't remember when.
The next day, a pimp rolls up to Friday's building, where outside her little brother Cleve is fixing his bike. This pimp is Fancy Dexter, played by Ted Lange, no mustache. This is pre-Love Boat. And he gets out of the car. Behind him is another car containing his 4 ladies.
Cleve runs up to greet Fancy, who has brought some Chanel No. 5 for Friday. Cleve takes it and says she'll be down in a minute, but he'll run the gift up to her, saying she loves your presents.
She doesn't even know about them. He hides it in his little closet.
So Friday's leaving as Cleve comes in. He hides Fancy's gift behind his back, as she asks if her taxi's down there yet, and Cleve says he's waiting downstairs. Then he runs to his closet stash and adds his new prize. Friday calls out for Cleve to stay out of trouble, causing him to break the fourth wall and shoot us a grin.
Friday goes downstairs and there's no taxi outside. It's just Fancy the pimp. But he does offer her a ride and a job as a prostitute. He tries to convince her that the white boys will do anything to get next to her, but Friday doesn't hustle for nobody. Still, Fancy's pressing his case. His ladies have great clothes, a great ride, and their own health and welfare plan. No deal is struck, though.
Now we're down by the marina at the outdoor fashion show. It hasn't started yet, but people are mingling and drinking. Backstage, girls are getting dressed.
It's sort of an outdoor restaurant seating area.
Cloris is on the phone calling someone named Charlie and asking for help. We briefly cut back outside to see that Yarbrough arrives at the show, dressed in a red and white plaid suit to go with his pink shirt.
It's a very loud plaid. Backstage, Cloris is begging Charlie, that's Charles Foley, we'll find out, to get him to help me before the police come. But Charlie hangs up on her. Friday comes in and finds Cloris. She's excited to tell her about last night's assassination attempt, but Cloris doesn't want to hear it. She tells Friday that she knew she was doing wrong, but she kept getting in deeper and deeper. And she says, and last night Friday interrupts. Oh, it's a he. And then Cloris is just done with her. She tells her to back off. And then a dresser comes to collect Cloris and put her in her first outfit.
So back outside, Friday now meets up with her boss, Sean, who is there on a job to take pictures.
As is she.
He chides her for being late, and she explains that she was visiting a friend backstage, and he knows what she had been through the night before. Yarbrough is sitting at a table, watching the proceedings.
And then we meet private investigator Colt Hawkins. He comes up as Friday and Sean are bantering or arguing, whatever you want to call it, and he stops it in its tracks.
Friday asks what he's doing here, and he says he's doing what all private eyes do, watching unfaithful wives cheat on their unfaithful husbands.
He and Friday know each other. This isn't the first time they're meeting, obviously. But it's time to start the show. Madame Rena comes out and just Eartha Kitt's all over the place. She's talking about her designs and says that this collection is called the 4 Seasons of S.E.X.
Rawr.
I can't do that. That's her thing, not mine.
Sean remarks that she's not exactly subtle, and Friday says that she never was, even when Friday was modeling for her. The music kicks up, and the first model comes out wearing a canary yellow dress and a boa.
And a very blank expression on her face.
The second, a red dress with a red and white boa.
With an identical expression.
The third, a white dress with no boa. And lastly, a multicolored striped dress.
They walk into the center of the room. There's no runway per se, but in their little modeling area, they start, I don't know what to call it. It's sort of a cross between voguing and dancing while looking absolutely expressionless.
I think they're doing the swim.
And this goes on for a very long time. There's some awful music playing in the background too, we should probably mention.
Yarbrough extinguishes his cigarette and gets up and leaves. I want to mention that besides the red and white plaid jacket, he's wearing what looks like a Christmas-themed tie. There's a character wearing red and white, and don't get a very good shot of it, but it looks like maybe he's blowing stars or snowflakes into the sky. It's very seasonal, but not for New Year's Day.
Yeah, we did establish this as January 1st, but the Christmas trees are still up on January 1st. I think we can cut them a little slack, at least on this. Sean and Friday are standing right next to each other, shooting basically identical shots. I'm not sure what the purpose of having them both there is. Backstage, the dresser is frantically looking for Cloris. Also backstage are at least 2 of the models who are currently on stage. Great continuity.
But not for long, because the 4 seasons of SEX are now exiting the stage, and Madame Rena comes on to introduce Miss Cloris Boston as Katahari Sunrise. She doesn't come out on stage, so Madame Rena says once again, Kalahari sunrise. Still nothing, so she growls, I said Kalahari sunrise.
The third time seems to be the one that does the trick. Cloris does come out, very slowly. First her hand pulls at the curtain, then her body sort of shuffles out. She's almost lurching. And then she falls flat on the carpet, and we see a huge knife sticking out of her back.
As the crowd gasps, Friday runs to her friend. Holding her up, Friday asks her why.
With her dying words, Cloris says, I wanted to ask you, to save Chet, they, Black Widow. Friday, cradling her friend, screams for someone to call an ambulance.
Now we see Lieutenant Jack Wayne, potato chip aficionado, is at the scene. He asks Colt Hawkins, private investigator, how he happened to have been there to call it in. There's a little back and forth between them. They seem to have a respectful yet contentious relationship.
Colt says that he'd rather look at the live ones than pick up the dead ones for less money. And Lieutenant Jake Wayne concedes the point. And then eats a chip.
But as to the question of who might have killed Cloris, Madame Rena says, why don't you ask Ford Malotte?
I think she hisses it rather than asks.
He's been trying to ruin Madame Rena for years, stealing her designs. He'd also been sending Cloris back and forth to Washington, D.C. for whatever reason. Maybe she knew too much.
In the next scene, Yarbrough is sitting in a car outside Friday's building.
Wearing Mr. McFeely's hat.
And a coat that makes him look like a delivery driver. He takes the package up to the building where Cleve once again is playing outside. Yarbrough says he's looking for Friday. He's got a new camera to deliver. Cleve directs him to their apartment, where inside Friday is currently getting ready to take a shower.
Yarbrough thanks Cleve and heads inside.
He goes in via the roof entrance. She has a terrace that extends from out of her apartment. Once he's inside, he draws his knife and slowly walks towards the bathroom, where Friday is currently showered, and yes, it's a nude scene. Just then, the phone rings. Not wanting to get out of the shower, she shouts for Cleve to get it, but he doesn't, and the phone keeps ringing. So she stops showering, wraps herself up in a simply enormous bath towel, and tries to get out. But just then, she spots Yarbrough with the knife.
Yarbrough rushes at her. She screams and dodges, and Yarbrough sends himself flying into the shower. Friday runs out into the hall, wrapping the towel around her. A mother with her children are out in the hall, about to enter their apartment, and the woman chastises Friday for entertaining in the middle of the day.
She says, y'all is too much. Standing behind the woman and her children, Friday is protected, I guess, but Yarbrough is still approaching with the knife. But once he sees that he's going to have to kill all those people to get away with this, instead he goes downstairs. Friday stands behind the woman, and she's shaking with fear. Later, in her apartment, Friday is telling Colt and Lieutenant Jake, now eating Ruffles, about the attack. She IDs her attacker as the man she bumped into at the airport.
She still hasn't taken the opportunity to get dressed, but she has put on a white robe, and she has a pink towel wrapped around her head.
Lieutenant Wayne sums up all the crimes so far. An assassination attempt, Cloris's murder. Oh, and also there was a stiff full of bullets at Cloris's apartment. Colt is confused by this extra dead person, but when Friday hears the name Chet Freed, that's the dead guy, she realizes that it was Cloris's boyfriend from out of town. So that must have been why Cloris was trying to call Friday.
Lieutenant Wayne suspects Cloris was dealing because they had found 50 kilos of uncut pure junk in her apartment. Friday says she knows her friend wasn't dealing. She made a lot of trips to D.C. and had a lot of friends there.
And heavy boyfriends.
But she definitely wasn't dealing.
Lieutenant Jake wonders if one of those boyfriends might be a politician, but Friday can't say for sure. Lieutenant wants to know who would invite Cloris to a really fancy party. They found an invitation with her stuff, and it was made out to her. He asks Friday the names of her friends, but she doesn't know them personally. Publicly, asks Jake? She doesn't know that either. So he has no other choice but to conclude that it must be the drugs. At this point, Colt agrees with Lieutenant Jake. Then Lieutenant Jake says he wishes he had some beer.
Now we're at Cloris's funeral. Colt Hawkins, private investigator, has accompanied Friday to this funeral. The Four Seasons of SEX are there, as is Yarbrough. Friday sees Yarbrough in the crowd and steals away from Colt to take pictures of Yarbrough.
Yarbrough sees her, so she returns to Colt's side to point him out. But by then, he's gone.
He's gotten into a red convertible and takes off, tires screeching.
Next, we see Lieutenant Jake and a bag of chips at the scene of the crime of the missing hearse. The driver is describing the woman who stole it. She was good-looking, about this tall. Oh, and she had a bag. Lieutenant Wayne asks if it looked like a camera gadget bag, and the man agrees.
So Lieutenant Jake recognizes the description as that of Friday Foster.
Who else could it be?
He asks Colt if Friday is now in the habit of stealing hearses, and Colt says she probably saw someone involved with the shooting at the airport the other night and took the nearest vehicle to chase him down.
Lieutenant Jake Wayne thinks that she has more balls than brains, but Colt says, nah, she's all woman.
And the lieutenant needs a beer.
On to the chase. Yarborough leads Friday down a hilly landscape. Another car ends up as collateral damage as it pulls straight into a cliff. Once in town, Friday causes a cop to get rear-ended.
Yeah, for this chase scene, the music is funky, but the chase scene itself is hardly worth mentioning.
Yeah, the cop doesn't turn around and chase the people who caused that accident.
Eventually, Yarborough stops his car and gets out and goes into a deserted warehouse. And Friday follows.
She's actually very quiet as she follows him, but somehow he knows that she's there. She draws her camera, whether to shoot or use it as a weapon, not sure. Yarborough's hiding behind a wall. Friday's coming up there. Yarborough's hiding behind a corner. Friday's getting closer. But then Yarborough comes up from behind her and grabs her. They struggle and her camera slides away. She reaches into her bag and grabs a bottle and sprays it in his face. I think she just maced him before he could strangle her.
She runs downstairs to escape, and there she's stopped by the police. Thank God the police, she says, but she quickly changes her tune when they throw her against the wall and start to frisk her.
It's a very enthusiastic frisking, if I must say.
She tries to tell them that there's a man back there who's trying to kill her.
And the one who shot Blake Tarr.
And that he's an assassin and he's going to get away, but they don't believe her.
She's very angry at this turn of events. And back at the Glance offices, Monk Riley is also very angry. He dresses Friday down for taking such a stupid and expensive risk. The bail, the possibly getting sued by the funeral director, the $600 camera she lost. Friday thinks that there was nothing else that she could have done, but Riley says she's going to get herself killed this way.
Just then Colt comes in, and he teases Friday about her arrest.
Did you enjoy the bread and water?
Colt has discovered that anonymous flowers have been sent to Cloris's funeral. Then he asks Friday if she's heard of David Lee Hart.
The senator, Friday asks? And Colt nods.
It makes sense. Cloris had a bunch of contacts in D.C.
So maybe she had a senator stashed away the whole time.
Friday says that some man named Ford Malotte set them up, which is a coincidence because that's the man Colt is going to see.
Well, Friday wants to go too, but Riley won't allow it. He absolutely, positively puts his foot down.
Friday wants to go to prove that Cloris wasn't dealing. And just then, Sean comes in with a blow-up of one of Friday's pictures from the airport shooting, and Friday recognizes Yarborough as the man who tried to kill her.
He's plainly visible. Riley tells Sean to get this print to the police before Yarborough kills Friday. Friday says, "You see why I have to go now?" But Riley puts his foot down. No way, no how is she going to D.C. Then we cut to the Washington National Airport, where Friday and Colt are catching a taxi.
We're treated to a travelogue of Washington, D.C., while the Friday Foster main title plays again. The music is so distracting in a good way that it's really difficult to pay attention to any of the action on screen.
But it's over soon, and the car pulls up to a dark and sleazy bar. This annoys Colt because they're in Washington, D.C. They could have met somewhere more classy, but Friday feels more at home here.
This is the Butterfly Club.
Inside, a man leers at Colt, furthering his unease.
Friday asks Colt, in a proper British accent, if he'd feel more comfortable on the White House lawn. Then she tells him in a Transylvanian accent that she won't bite. Both accents sound better than Pam Grier's Jamaican accent she used in Coffee.
Absolutely. Friday goes up to a waitress, who turns out to be a man, and asks where Ford is. She's directed to the back room, where Ford is there with his posse, pals, gang. He greets them, saying,
"Coochie coochie."
Yeah. She asks if he's Ford Malotte, and he says, "Coochie coochie." Friday IDs herself as being from Glance magazine, and Ford seems to like the look of Colt. Then they join the party.
Ford says that he was saddened to hear of Cloris's death and that he was being investigated for it.
Ford says he hates cliches, like the one where we ask, "What are we all doing here?" And Friday agrees they've been done to death, but so is Cloris. Ford says that Lieutenant Wayne contacted Cloris, and he starts waxing rhapsodic about her. No one could wear things like she could. Her body was designed in heaven by God himself.
Friday wants Ford to get her an invite to that party with the Senator David Lee Hart. A man in an overly large and loud suit is listening through the beads in the doorway. Ford says that with a change of clothes and a new coiffure, that she could possibly pass for Cloris, but that he couldn't possibly help her. Friday thinks there's a reason he doesn't feel that she should attend the party. Is it because Black Widow will be there?
The background music plays a discordant note. Ford gets very angry at this. He says fooling around with ambitious men like Senator Hart is hazardous to the health. He recommends that Friday go home, get laid, have a baby. But he can't possibly help her get to this party.
Also, at the mention of Black Widow, the guy who had been listening in the doorway steals off to, no doubt, do something dastardly.
We'll see. Friday is ready to storm off, dragging Colt with her. But Colt says he's staying behind to ask Ford some questions, man to man. So Friday exits to get a taxi.
It's now dark outside, and Friday goes across the street because there's a taxi there, but it drives off as she approaches. Then a car pulls up onto the curb, nearly hitting her. It's being driven by the guy from the Butterfly Club in the overly large suit, who had been listening through the beads.
She decides it's a good idea to get off the sidewalk. She runs to the brush behind her, and then she's near some kind of abandoned tunnel under a bridge. Not sure. The car's still chasing her, till it rams into some electrical box, and the live wires electrocute the driver.
Friday runs back toward the club and meets Colt, who had been looking for her. Someone tried to kill me, she says. He asked her if she got a good look at him, and she didn't. But side note, he's still back there if Colt wants to go see him.
But he doesn't. The next scene is Ford Malotte. He's in a phone booth talking to somebody. He says he didn't want to bother whoever he's talking to with this, but the girl showed up talking about Black Widow, so he thought he should know. And we see a truck, it's driven by Yarborough, pulling up near that phone booth.
We then see that the person on the other end of this call is Blake Tarr, apparently fully recovered from being shot.
He's now in his bedroom or a hotel room in a bathrobe. It's very short.
Blake says that Ford was right to call, but it shouldn't be a problem that Ford needs to concern himself with.
The girl can't know too much, and she can't hinder us. There's too much at stake, and Tarr is on top of it. The truck pulls closer to the phone booth. Ford hangs up and turns around, just in time to see Doom approaching. He raises his hand and screams, and the truck flattens the phone booth, crushing it against the wall. The truck drives away.
So now we find ourselves at this exclusive party that has been talked about, and we see the arrival of the Reverend Noble Franklin, played by Scatman Crothers.
Then Friday's white limo pulls up. Colt is their driver. And as a good driver should, he parks the car and goes around to where Friday is sitting and holds the door open for her. But that's not good enough. She snaps her fingers, makes him help her out of the car. Colt tries to talk Friday out of this scheme, but Friday's determined. She asks Colt for the invitation, the one Cloris received. He pretends he can't find it, but then he gives it to her, frustrating her even more. She walks in. There's a butler taking the invitations from the party guests. You can't just walk in. But instead of giving it to him, she drops it on the floor and says, "You don't have to announce me. I'm on my way to the powder room."
She enters the party and immediately sees the Reverend Noble Franklin. She goes to him and tells him she's a reporter for her church's newsletter, and she'd like to take pictures of him, but she forgot her camera.
Silly goose.
The Reverend is willing to set up an appointment with her at Jericho, his private estate.
Then he grabs her hips, pulls her close, and says she could be there for another purpose, too. She backs away, declining the interview. But then Senator Hart arrives to slow Reverend Noble's roll.
He had been watching this exchange, and he chooses this moment to interrupt them.
I'm sure Friday's very grateful.
The Reverend introduces Friday Foster, though he shouldn't know her name. And Friday tells the senator that she's glad to meet him.
The senator wants to know what church Friday is working for, but Friday drops the pretense. She says she's here to see him. She missed him at the funeral of their mutual friend Cloris Boston. Hart realizes that this is not a conversation that should be held in public, so he leads Friday away as Reverend Noble reminds her that she's still invited to Jericho.
Friday and the senator are now outside. They're talking when they're interrupted by the senator's executive assistant, Charles Foley. The senator tells Charlie that they'll be going back to his place to discuss mutual interests, and could Charlie mind the store while he's away? Charlie says of course, and then tells Friday that if there's anything he can do to be of assistance while she's in D.C., just call and ask for Charlie.
As they leave, Charlie gives them a very meaningful stare. Now we're with Senator Hart at his lodgings. Looks sort of like a cabin. Senator Hart and Friday are sharing an intimate moment. They're drinking in front of the fire. She's removed her jacket, wearing a strapless dress. Hart says that though his relationship with Cloris was only physical, he'd do anything to change what happened to her. Then he asks Friday to trust him, but Friday says, "Trust me. Tell me what's going on."
Hart tells her that if she were to speak to Blake Tarr, everything would make sense. Friday wonders why Tarr would plan his own assassination, and Hart explains it's all part of a big power play to make her believe it's something it isn't. Then Friday asks Hart, what is his big power play?
And then they make out, and we're assuming they have sex. The next day, Charlie is meeting with Enos Griffith, played by Jim Backus, in a wheelchair. He's reporting on Friday. She said she was from Glance magazine, but she also mentioned Black Widow. Charlie thinks that they can use her and that the senator will go along. And if not, asks Enos? Well, Charlie says he'll have to tell Senator Hart that those thousands of small contributors are really just one big contributor. Obviously, he's going to owe whoever that is. They want to use Friday to flush out Blake Tarr by telling her that Tarr is involved in Cloris's murder. And they agree. Blake Tarr is the answer to all their problems.
So whatever is happening here, it seems that Enos Griffith is behind everything.
Not that we'll ever see him again.
So now we find ourselves back in Los Angeles, as are Friday and Colt. On the terrace of Friday's rooftop apartment, Friday is on the phone with Riley, and Colt is watching Cleve scoop many spoonfuls of sugar into his cereal.
Colt watches this in shock and maybe awe, and asks Cleve if he'd like some more sugar on his cereal. Cleve says no, he doesn't like it too sweet. Cleve asks Colt if he has any money. Colt says barrels of it, why? Then Cleve tries to sell Colt some of his ill-gotten goods from his little closet. Colt's not interested. He asks if Cleve has some kind of hustle going on, but Cleve says nope, it's just black capitalism.
Friday ends her call with Riley, saying that if Glance isn't interested in her story, then she'll take it somewhere else. She slams the phone down, and Colt tells her to keep trying. The phone rings again, and Friday picks it up, immediately apologizes to Riley, but it's Madame Rena on the phone.
Yeah, caller ID wasn't a thing yet, so you never know who is on the other end. Madame Rena has some vital information about her trip to Washington for Friday, but she can't tell her on the phone. She says, Friday, you need to come here now. Friday, I said now. Because Friday didn't materialize in that nanosecond between two sentences.
Colt agrees to come with, as long as Friday promises there won't be any dead bodies there.
And stupidly, she agrees.
So now we're at Madame Rena's place. She asks Friday, why did you have to stir things up? But before anything else could be said, Yarbrough, wearing another plaid suit, pops into the doorway, shoots Madame Rena in the back, flinches at the sound of his own gun.
Madame Rena falls backwards at first and then pivots to the side so Colt can catch her. Yarbrough runs away, and Friday yells at Colt to follow him. Then she goes to Madame Rena so that she may hear her last words. She offers no aid or assistance and does not call for an ambulance. Rena says that Friday is wrong about Black Widow. Friday says, but the senator says, and then Rena says, get a pencil and write what I say if you want to know the truth.
Meanwhile, Colt is chasing Yarbrough, climbing fire escapes and jumping across rooftops. When Yarbrough pulls out his gun and takes a shot at Colt, Colt takes out his own gun, then ponders what he's even doing here.
It's a very funny scene. He says it out loud. What am I doing here?
They fire upon each other while hiding behind chimneys. The chase continues. Yarbrough grabs a board and uses it to cross between two buildings. When he gets to the other side, Colt fires his gun and Yarbrough drops his. Colt is in pursuit and Yarbrough is on the run.
Then Colt catches up to Yarbrough. They wrestle a bit. They're both trying to get control of Colt's gun. Then Colt puts his gun in his waistband, and they start hitting each other. This fight looks like a Three Stooges routine, where it's just punch after punch. Nobody falls at first. Yarbrough goes down, but then he comes up with a board with a sharpened, pointy end.
He charges at Colt, but Colt shoots him several times.
The two shots don't seem to work, but he does drop the board. However, he's still standing there looking dazed and maybe surprised that it's going to end this way. Colt has to fire 3 more times to get him to finally fall down.
Back with Madame Rena and Friday, Madame Rena tells Friday to call this number, and they'll explain. This is followed by her dying words, wrong about Black Widow.
Apparently they've been talking for quite a while because now Colt walks in. Friday says, she's dead, Colt. Colt says, that makes 2 today, Friday. Maybe she had a buy one, get one coupon. Colt says that at least one of the dead won't be hurting anyone ever again. He asks Friday if Madame Rena said anything. Friday lies and says, nope, nothing.
So the coroner has arrived to load Madame Rena in the back of a station wagon. Friday is at a phone booth calling the number Madame Rena had given to her. She says she's calling for Madame Rena and that she can't come to the phone because she's dead.
Just now.
And then they ask for somebody else, I guess, and Friday says, no, he's dead too, but I have no idea who that could be referring to.
Yarbrough is the only person it could be, but there's no reason that Yarbrough and Friday would be together.
And I doubt that she knows his name. He never really introduced himself.
Maybe he asked for the guy in the loud plaid jacket.
Friday says that she was told to call this number. Whoever's on the other end of the line tells her to go to the rooftop of the Citibank building.
1 cab ride later, she's there. She heads up to the roof, but there's no one there. Or is there? 2 suited men appear and start approaching her. She tries to go back the way she came, but the stairs are locked and she's stuck up there. Then a helicopter comes in for a landing. Eventually.
The helicopter lands and Blake Tarr emerges from it. Friday yells at him for scaring her. Rooftops and helicopters and henchmen.
Oh, bye.
Tarr tells her that Rena was right. She's got guts. And it was because of Rena that he came back to the States.
Friday asks Tarr what he knows about Rena, and Tarr says she worked for me. Rena and Ford are the ones who convinced him to come back to the States from wherever he was. Argentina, maybe? No, I'm kidding. Friday accuses him of being behind Black Widow. But Tarr asks her the obvious question, why would he shoot his own people or orchestrate his own assassination attempt? He says that Hart is a clever SOB. He's the one in charge. It's some kind of power grab with a code name of Black Widow.
So now Tarr and Friday are taking a ride back to his place. She doesn't get to ride in the helicopter.
But it is a limo, so that's nice.
Tarr tells her that the only thing Rena had learned about Black Widow is that it was scheduled to occur on Valentine's Day, which is the day after tomorrow.
Wow, time really flies in this movie. He asks Friday to help. Well, actually, he doesn't ask. He says he knows Friday is going to help him. She asks how he knows, and he says it's a billionaire thing.
They've arrived at Tarr's mansion on the river. Right now, Blake wants to know just what makes Friday Foster tick.
So she tells him. First, she's a woman. Then a photographer. Then she's a big sister to a 40-year-old man trapped in a kid's body. She likes cats and dogs and horses, not necessarily in that order.
And men.
Oh, sorry, I missed that part. Who likes men? She likes cats and dogs and horses and men, not necessarily in that order. By now, they are naked in the jacuzzi together, still continuing this conversation. She makes her own decisions, and she's a Gemini. As far as where she's going, it's somewhere she didn't expect to go. She says Tarr seems like he's from the block, so that changed her mind about him. He treats a person like a person and a woman like a woman. And by now, they're in bed.
This conversation lasts around 2 days because it ends with Friday lifting a glass and saying, Happy Valentine's Day.
Then we fade to the Washington, D.C. airport, where Colt, driving a rental car, is carping at Friday for being unreachable for 2 days, then turning up and dragging him to Washington, D.C. And he'd like to know why.
Friday says they're going to see the senator, and that she's been trying to get in touch with all of the black leaders, and they've all been MIA.
She knows all their numbers.
Colt wants to know how the senator would know where they are. And she says, would a pimp lose track of his stable?
Colt gives her a nod. You got something there. They seem to be outside the Senate building in Washington, D.C., although I can't say for sure because I haven't been there in a really long time.
So as they enter, Charles Foley pulls up and he sees them.
Friday and Colt make it to the senator's office, but his secretary says he's not able to talk to them. They say they'll wait, but she says you're going to wait a long time because he's not coming back today. When pressed, the secretary says that the only thing he mentioned was that today was the day the walls come tumbling down.
It didn't make any sense to her, though.
Friday says not much would.
Then we cut away to Charles Foley and the men who were with him, and they're checking the registration on Colt's rented car.
Friday and Colt are walking away from the office, still inside the Senate building, pondering the meaning behind the clue.
Colt recognizes the walls coming tumbling down from Joshua at the Battle of Jericho. Friday starts to sing the song, and Colt joins in. Then it hits her. Jericho.
That's the Reverend Noble Franklin's estate up the river. Now they exit the building. As they walk down the stairs, they look towards their car and see there are goons waiting outside of it. They decide to split up. Colt will take on the goons because they don't know who he is, and Friday will go find a phone and call Tarr again.
Friday makes the call, but she's unable to reach him and doesn't want to leave a message.
She's at a payphone that's near, I guess, a convenience store. Outside that convenience store, a milkman is delivering bottles of dairy goodness to the store. Yum. Once inside, that milk truck is unattended, and Friday decides she's going to steal it and drive off.
Meanwhile, Colt approaches the men around his car. They scuffle, and Colt takes the two men out. As he goes to hop in, Friday pulls up in that milk truck and tells him to follow her to Jericho. Colt would like to do this, but his engine won't start.
He pounds the steering wheel in delightful exasperation. Now we're going to jump ahead of Friday a little bit. We're at a compound. It's actually outside Jericho. Charles Foley is supervising his militant volunteer army. They're getting their guns and ammo, and the white men are getting fitted with afros and blackface for whatever reason.
Back at his car, Blake is looking at his engine, trying to figure out what was done to it, when Blake Tarr pulls up and offers him a ride.
To the airport, not Jericho. Colt agrees to go, although he complains all the way.
And this is when Friday makes it to Jericho. She pulls up in the milk truck.
Right up to where the guerrillas are getting ready for battle.
One of them asks what she's doing there, and she says delivering the milk, while slamming a glass jug of milk over the man's head. She pulls out, running over anyone who might be in her way. As she drives through, Charles Foley tells everyone to hold their fire.
Friday pulls up to the estate. She runs to the door and bangs on it till someone lets her in. Once inside, she rushes to Reverend Noble. She tells him there's an army big enough to start World War III out there. Today, the walls of Jericho are coming down, by gunfire this time. Noble asks who's behind this, and Friday says it's Senator Hart, but Noble's confused. Senator Hart's right there. He's the leader for this unity conference.
Yeah, Senator Hart begs to differ. The walls that he was referring to were the walls of prejudice and hypocrisy.
And hate.
The senator says that for the first time, all the black leaders are gathered together working as one. And Friday wants to know, if the senator isn't behind Black Widow and Blake Tarr isn't behind Black Widow, then whose army is that?
Hart asks, what army? And 1 nanosecond later, the first shot is fired into the compound, killing a vase of flowers. Everyone ducks for cover as bullets tear the place apart. One blows up the television, which causes the Reverend to wail, "Oh Lord, why me?"
There was a full-scale assault on Jericho. Friday asks the senator what Black Widow hopes to gain from this. The senator explains that what better way to end black power than to get all the leaders in one place and wipe them all out at once. But Friday says she saw black people along with the whites, and the senator says some people will do anything for $1.
As the battle rages on, an insurgent busts through the window, but Friday shoots him before the senator can be harmed. Then a helicopter lands. The doors open, and more men than you think that chopper could hold pour out of it. It's like a clown car helicopter. These men are under Tarr's command. Colt is with them as well.
After nearly emptying, the helicopter takes back off, with one guy left aboard to provide an aerial assault. Colt catches up to Charles Foley and starts beating him up, educating him with every punch.
Looks like he's workshopping his sidekick taglines. Tarr and his men shoot their way through the perimeter. Back at the lodge, the guerrillas are on the run as Tarr pursues them. Tarr makes it to the lodge. It does look like some of the militants get away, though.
But the shooting has stopped. Friday runs out to see Tarr, and Senator Hart and Noble Franklin follow.
Tarr and Hart correct their little misunderstanding. Neither one was behind Black Widow. So who was behind it, they wonder? Until Colt shows up, holding Charles by the scruff of the neck. Foley tells Tarr that he's sorry his friends missed him at the airport, but he only hires bungling fools, and he has only himself to blame for that. That's my comment, not his. Friday says, "You're a bungling fool," to Foley. "Such a fool, man," agrees the senator. Friday says that us folks can stick together when it's necessary, and then she snuggles with Tarr and Hart and blows Colt a kiss. I believe this is leading to a Devil's Rectangle-style orgy.
So now back outside Friday's apartment, Cleve is riding his bike up to it when Fancy Dexter returns.
Yay!
He's brought more gifts for Friday. This time it's a Gucci purse and some rocks from Tiffany's.
Just like Cleve asked for. Friday asked for.
Cleve goes to take them upstairs, and Fancy says he'll wait right there.
He's still with his skanks, by the way. But when Cleve returns to his own apartment, he sees to his surprise that it's already full of flowers and expensive swag, like furs and watches. And it's from both Senator Hart and Blake Tarr.
Then Colt gets buzzed in. He's wearing a tuxedo, and he says he's brought something for Friday, but he doesn't feel he can compete with the senator and Blake Tarr. Cleve assures him he's right, he can't.
Cleve says he's cheap. Colt says compared to the other guys, he feels like a lightweight. Cleve says, "You are." But Friday says that Colt's her main man. He's going to take her out for an evening of dancing, drinks, and no kids. And Cleve looks a little upset to hear this. And that's the end.
You are listening to the American International Podcast, where we're discussing Friday Foster from 1975.
Friday Foster is based on a Chicago Tribune syndicate comic of the same name. It ran from January 1970 until late 1974. James Lawrence wrote the strip, and the original illustrator was Jorge Longarón, as we've said. He was later followed by Dick Giordano. Contemporary sources estimated that Friday Foster was published in between 81 to 100 newspapers at the peak of its popularity, and it was the only nationally syndicated comic strip to feature an African-American female protagonist at the time.
In June of 1973, The Hollywood Reporter said that Don Gottlieb and Arthur Marks purchased film and television rights for their company, General Film Corporation.
In December of 1973, writer Orville Hampton was completing the script, and General Film Corporation hoped to shoot the film in 1974. By May of 1975, Hampton had completed the script, and principal photography began in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. in August of that year.
The film's production cost $750,000, according to an April 1975 Hollywood Reporter article. According to a June 1975 Hollywood News item, Gottlieb and Marks had planned to follow up the film version of Friday Foster with a television series, but that was never realized.
Luci de Jesus composed the Friday Foster soundtrack, with Wardell Bodie Chandler writing and performing the main title song, though he did not sing it. There were some female singers on that.
The costumes for the models in the film were designed by Dazzle M and Lord Rebel. Fancy's unusual white car is a 1972 Stutz Blackhawk. It was priced at about $26,000. The mobile phone cost an additional $1,500 to install. The bodies were handmade in Italy, then shipped to the United States, where they were paired with a Pontiac Bonneville engine and frame. Between 500 and 600 of these were made from 1971 to 1987. Elvis Presley bought the first one when the manufacturer could not make a deal with Frank Sinatra.
The unusual-looking pistols Yarborough delivers to his co-conspirators in a paper bag are Mauser C96s, first made in 1896, one of the first successful semi-automatic handguns.
This is Ted Lange's feature film debut. Pam Grier started off as an operator with AIP before she was discovered by Roger Corman, who cast her in several of his New World Pictures films. She then signed a 5-picture deal with AIP, and this was her 7th and final film for that studio.
Friday Foster was released on December 25th, 1975. Box Office Magazine recommended theater owners tie the movie into the comic strip, although the strip had ended before the movie's premiere, well before. They also suggested holding special TGIF, Thank God It's Friday showings for patrons.
The AIP press book suggested that theater owners hold a female photographer contest, a fashion fair with local designers, and they recommended sending a pretty girl photographer to local malls to snap pictures of unwitting shoppers and hand out flyers promoting the film.
The press book also said that the relationship between Friday and Colt Hawkins was reminiscent of Nick and Nora Charles of the Thin Man series, or Macmillan and Wife, as they often relieved the tension of dangerous moments by finding some humor in their life or death peril.
Taglines for Friday Foster include, "Wham, bam, here comes Pam."
Thank God it's Friday. She's out to score for more of what you love her for.
She's a fascinating, assassinating, high-living, fun-loving chick, and the company she's keeping is mighty heavy.
Her name is Friday, but you can dig her any day of the week.
Friday Foster was the 9th biggest box office draw the week it was released, and by February 11th, it had grossed over $1,600,000 in theaters.
That's 1976 money. Box Office Magazine wrote that Ms. Grier looks better than ever, principally due to her new nose. Rude. And this AIP release should please her fans. Surrounding Ms. Grier is virtually an all-star cast of black performers, including 3 male leads. And even smaller roles are handled by such accomplished people as Julian Harris and Rosalind Miles.
The New York Times review said that Christmas used to inspire great music or enduring sentimental literature. Now it brings us a pile of corpses and a plot equally full of holes called Friday Foster. The action is faster than the calendar, so much so that it comes as a shock to discover that what seems like 6 days of running around actually takes place in the span from New Year's Eve to Valentine's Day. The review summed up by calling the movie mental and visual junk food.
Of course, these cast members appear in more movies than just Friday Foster. Pam Grier, who played Friday Foster, appeared in 6 other AIP films: Black Mama, White Mama, Coffee, and Scream, Blackula, Scream, all in 1973. Foxy Brown from 1974, and Sheba Baby and Bucktown also came out in 1975.
Yaphet Kotto, who portrayed Colt Hawkins, had previously appeared in Truck Turner in 1974 and would go on to appear in The Monkey Hustle in 1976.
Thalmus Rasulala, Blake Tarr, was in Blackula in 1972, and also Cornbread, Earl and Me, and Bucktown in 1975.
Jim Backus, who portrayed Enos Griffith, had previously appeared in Operation Bikini in 1963 and would go on to appear in Chomps in 1979.
Scatman Crothers as Reverend Noble Franklin appeared in Bloody Mama in 1970, Slaughter's Big Ripoff in 1973, Truck Turner 1974, and he would go on to appear in Mean Dog Blues in 1978.
We would see Ted Lange, who played Fancy Dexter, turn up in Record City in 1977.
Tierre Turner, Cleve, was in Cornbread, Earl and Me 1975, and also Bucktown 1975.
Julius Harris, who portrayed Monk Riley, had previously appeared in Black Caesar and its sequel, Hell Up in Harlem, both in 1973, and would appear in Gorp in 1980.
Carl Weathers, the silent assassin Yarborough, was also in Bucktown 1975 and would go on to be in Force 10 from Navarone in 1978.
John Anthony Bailey, Cop Number 1, who enjoyed frisking Friday Foster, would turn up in Love at First Bite in 1979. And Mel Carter, the security gate guard at the airport, had previously appeared in both Slaughter's Big Ripoff in 1973 and Sugar Hill in 1974.
Our director, Arthur Marks, directed Bucktown 1975 and went on to direct JD's Revenge and The Monkey Hustle in 1976.
So, Cheryl, that's all the information we found on Friday Foster at this time. So all that's left is for us to talk about our opinions of the film. So what did you think of Friday Foster using our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic?
On my first viewing of Friday Foster, I focused on the plot and not so much the film as a whole. The opening credits make it look like a lighthearted 70s detective show, and I found the plot kind of silly. The movie seemed long and it dragged at times. I didn't think the writing was all that tight. Pam Grier seemed to really lean into the silliness of her role, and that was a 180 from her turn as Coffee, the tough nurse who fought to avenge her sister by knocking off drug kingpins who supplied her and others in the neighborhood with junk. You might remember we covered Coffee in episode 6 of this podcast. At first, I didn't think that silliness was appropriate or appealing. But the second time I watched the movie, I realized that this movie's strength lies in its awesome cast. First, I have to give Pam Grier a little more credit. She isn't just being goofy here. She's not used to death and violence. She's not from the streets. She's a photographer, an ex-model. She's visibly shaken when one of her friends dies right in front of her, or when she has to run for her life. But she's also playful and fun when she has the time, and she's very sexy and seductive too. It's easy to see why she's courted by nearly all the men in this movie. But Yaphet Kotto is a real reason to watch this movie. Colt and Friday make a fantastic team as they stumble through the plot holes in a massive conspiracy against black leaders. Of all the men in this movie, Colt is the only one that Friday can trust completely, and I think that's why they end up together in the end. No matter what the scene requires, whether it's bravery, human frustration, or action, Kotto is up for it. He is so fun to watch. Notably on the scene where he's on the roof of the building trying to catch Yarborough, and he goes, "What am I doing here?" We just laughed so hard when we saw that. In the next few scenes where the two are fighting to the death, the battle is violent, but then it veers into cartoonish violence for a second before Yarborough is shot dead. Kotto also has some great comic turns interacting with Cleve, Friday's little brother. And when he starts his car to chase after Friday only to find it won't go. I think he's just perfect in this film. Then there's Thalmus Rasulala, who we saw in Blackula, another previous episode. He's so smooth and confident here. He's a billionaire who can command an army, but he's also a regular guy when he's with Friday. Godfrey Cambridge makes a meal out of a minor role, though he gets third billing, as an effeminate fashion designer, but he doesn't really play to the stereotype. His characterization feels real, and he's delightful when he's on screen or being crushed by a truck, because his death scene was the second best after Carl Weathers. Eartha Kitt was so good in this too, playing a dramatic panther of a fashion designer. She purrs, she hisses, she preens. She's like Catwoman times 1,000. Tierre Turner as Cleve took the role of a bratty kid brother and made it feel fresh. I love that he's such a hustler. Another character of Fancy Dexter, played by Ted Lange, he's having such fun playing a pimp here that I didn't mind that he was just a stereotype. He's not as heavy as he thinks, though. Honestly, everyone on screen is doing their part to elevate the story and make this film more than the sum of its parts. I kind of wish it had become an episodic television series. And I want to read the comic strips. I would definitely watch Friday Foster again, and I recommend it unreservedly to others. I give it an A. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, Friday Foster may be silly at times. It's definitely campy, but what it is mostly is fun. It's got a funky soundtrack, and I couldn't help but smile all the way through it. It's so nice to see Pam Grier in a role where she seems to be having such a good time. Her Friday Foster is smiling, she gets to joke around. Sure, she almost gets killed a few times, but not once is she nearly raped. And as you said, the rest of the cast is amazing as well. Yaphet Kotto as Colt Hawkins, private investigator, also seems to be having a good time here. There are times he's playing a little broad, and it just makes him that much more fun to watch. And the presence of Eartha Kitt is just so you know that this is a campy movie. You bring in Eartha Kitt to growl her way through her lines. Everyone knows that. And a special shout out to Ed Cambridge as Lieutenant Jake Wayne. It's really a one-dimensional character. All he does is eat chips and crave a beer at the end of every scene in which he appears. But the fact that this characterization is played throughout is pretty funny. It's a shame that while he's featured prominently in the first third of the film, he disappears altogether after that. And I also want to mention Carl Weathers as Yarbrough. He has absolutely no lines. All he does is look menacing or confused, depending upon the situation. Or sweaty. But he's an intimidating presence, and it plays well throughout the film. A lot of this movie, particularly the opening credits, feels like a TV program. And indeed, the concept of Friday Foster would make a great television series. Personally, I would love to see this developed into a series. I obviously don't have the rights, but if any streaming services or whoever does own the rights out there would be willing to hear my pitch nonetheless, I'm ready to present. But back to the film. Friday Foster does have a couple of plot holes. The timeline doesn't add up. The story takes place over the course of 6 weeks, but things seem to be happening pretty slowly if spread out over that amount of time. There's all this talk about Black Widow being nothing more than a power grab, but no one can decide by or from whom. It doesn't matter because it's all a red herring, and Black Widow refers to the operation to assassinate all of the black leaders in one place. And the person who appears to have instigated this is Jim Backus' Enos Griffith, who gets away with everything, no repercussions. So it's a far from perfect film. But the cast is so much fun to watch, and enough of the story is coherent enough that I was more than willing to go along for the ride. Friday Foster is a movie I'd seen a few times before, and I wouldn't hesitate to watch it again. I am also giving it an A.
I think if they can make an animated series about good times, also from the 70s, they could do an animated Friday Foster. That would be awesome. Pam Grier could do the voice.
Yeah, I'd be here for that. Well, Cheryl, I think the time has come to pack up our camera bags and head to our next gig. This has been the American International Podcast. I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.